Yeah, it's been okay. I'm mostly just been relaxing. I've actually watched most of the series so far. I didn't catch much of the first one, but I saw a bit of the LGD one and quite a lot of the previous series. This is actually the one I've been looking forward to the most, so kind of happy that this is the one I got to cast.
Nice,
Um,
nice. Is that
it's interesting.
because of CDEC or FanTuan or just like the way they match up?
No, it's just CDEC. I mean, I don't know. I feel like FanTuan, okay, there's ZSMJ like fan hype or whatever, but the team hasn't really proven itself in the past, and I actually don't think FanTuan's had any games in this patch or in this month. They haven't played any officials recently, so we don't really know what to expect from them. Whereas for CDEC, I've been following this team very closely for about a year now, and a lot of people talk about how like, oh, they just pick the same heroes all the time, they're not adapting, and I think that's not entirely true. I think they've shown signs of trying things out, but they kind of fall back on their standard heroes very often because they've decided this is the best way to approach a certain kind of playstyle in the game, which is still a powerful playstyle. But every now and then it seeps through, and so I'm very interested in the progression of like, is this going to be a game where they bring out their slashes way offlane Enchantress or the Nature's Prophet? That's one of their newer picks that they picked up recently at WCA. And I think that their pick and their playstyle is starting to like slowly develop and evolve a bit from where it was.
And it seems like they're realizing they have to branch out a little bit. The patches are going to change their play, and they're also just not limited to winning with the play style they've done in the past. So we will see them explore different areas, especially now with it being a new patch. This new patch is kind of unexplored territory for most teams, and with some kind of buffs all around the place on heroes like Invoker. Prophet's seen a ton of play today. I think every series has had at least one Prophet game, so it seems to be kind of at least a very popular trendy pick with some of the recent buffs, and also some of the nerfs to the offlane. With the offlane being a lot harder, you need heroes that are more suited to kind of going down there. The Prophet being able to kind of draw the creep aggro as well as just harass supports and keep vision of them seems to be back in favor as far as offlaners go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also I feel like the Alliance and Admiral Bulldog are maybe the one team that's really fully exploited it, but the Aghanim Scepter Prophet that got like buffed and
Mm-hmm.
changed and upgraded. It's like a game controlling item that I think has not been fully respected by any metagame yet, and maybe it's starting to have space to do that because in the past we've just had so many like clearly oppressive forces and metas controlling what's going on, and as a new patch starts, there's space for people to be like, hey, this thing's actually really strong. Maybe we should explore it a bit.
So we get new Doom, Infernal Blade, a new spell. It's I guess kind of toggleable attack where you swing your sword, you do some burn damage over time, and what do you make of the new Doom? It's definitely a bit weaker than he used to be, but do you see him still being a strong pick?
I mean, I don't see any really big reason why it shouldn't be a strong pick. I think the primary points in picking a Doombringer is to doom someone. Like that's, well, at least that's what it should be. I almost feel, and I feel like every time that IceFrog changes the hero, that's what the adjustment's mostly about. It's like, hey, people are playing this just as like a super farming hero or a lane control hero, or even a right click hero. Like a lot of the changes that you don't notice about Doom, it's almost in tension with this new skill because this is like an auto attacking right clicking spell. But I feel like they also changed the base stats of the hero. They changed his base attack time. They made it worse. Not wanting people to just play it as a hero that farms a lot and then right clicks people. It's meant to be a hero, I think, at least designed to be a hero that dooms, takes out a particular target in a fight. And I think for that purpose, still completely viable, absolutely fine, regardless of what you think of the new skill.
Okay. Well, we'll see how FanTuan look to use the hero with their draft. It's probably just going to look for some kind of strong early game laning stage here, and next stage of bans coming out. Darkseer, Dragon Knight, AA. We've seen Dragon Knight picked up a lot. He received a pretty, I would say, sizable buff to his Dragon Blood, although didn't see any success in the last BO3, although I don't know how much of that you can attribute to the Dragon Knight. I feel it was just eHome and their drafts being kind of all over the place in general. Not that DK
Yeah,
was
just the
particularly a weak pick.
It was the Morphling pick. I think that was a weak pick in that loss. I mean,
Yeah.
I've actually cast a few Morphlings in this patch, and I think they've all lost. I think it's like, we're still similar enough to the previous patch that you have to have heroes that can have an early impact in the game, that they can fight or can at least
Yeah.
pressure the enemy team, and that's just not one of them, right?
No, you TP in, you have a waveform, and even after the waveform, it's like, okay, what do you do now? You've used your waveform. Like that's your source of damage. He's no gyrocopter, no juggernaut. He's just does not pack a punch for a long, long time. So I don't know.
Visage is a go-to for CDEC in terms of
Yep.
early impact, and they've been picking this since forever. It's like pretty much their oldest pick. Um, Even from the days back when maybe it was back in the team, TI4 qualifiers around then. And the interesting thing about CDEC's Visage is that it's hardly ever a greedy one. It's hardly ever like go Aghanims and Solar Crest and Atos. It's usually like a build the mech and be the, you know, pull the team together kind of hero. That's the way Q usually runs the hero.
And well, that's the thing. Unlike most teams, they run it in the 5 position effectively. They'll often pair it with something like the Spirit Breaker. Not to say CDEC really have a strict 4 and 5. Like they split the farm a lot more evenly between their supports a lot of games compared to some teams. But here we go. Drow Visage. You mentioned kind of CDEC. They're mixing things up a bit here and there. And this is something they've done in the past, but they're putting kind of a new flair on this with the Nature's Prophet pick also put into the mix with the Drow Visage.
Yeah, and one of the things I've actually seen CDEC do, I mean, the way that most Dota teams professionally like try new things is they just look at what other teams are doing. And I don't know if you remember back to WCA last week, CDEC got thrashed in one game by TNC because of TNC's draw strat. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, hang on, we never heard of this team, we didn't even really take them seriously, and they just destroyed us. Well, maybe there's something to that thing they do.
And it's not like it was a new patch thing. That's something that TNC has done for like patch after patch
Forever.
after patch. Like Drow is just like their most successful and played hero, but suddenly CDEC's like, oh, this is actually not bad, and it fits CDEC over. I mean, CDEC can actually adapt pretty well. Like they're not just, you kind of mentioned at the start, like they're not just going to always go for their same picks. They can kind of mix things up when they need to.
Yeah, the one player who does seem to have a smaller hero pool is Shiki. It gets talked about like a lot. I don't know if his hero pool is too small, but it is like quite defined. There's, you know, it's not like he only has 2 heroes, but you know all the heroes which are Shiki heroes. There's probably 5 or 6 or 7 of them.
Is this CDEC with a stand-in, by the way? Is Shiki ZY is not an alias of Shiki, I don't believe.
I think it is Shiki.
Okay.
I think it is Shiki. I'm not. I wouldn't say for like 100% certain, but it seems familiar to me. Alternate.
Okay. Well, FanTuan pick up a Tide Hunter. They've kind of got an interesting array of heroes here. Very teamfight centric with the Tide Phoenix. You've got the Ravage around the Supernova. You've got Invoker. Depending if it's Quaswex or Exort. Quaswex a lot more teamfight focused, but the Exort if they want some more damage, and Doom less teamfight focused, but very much reliant on some long cooldown ultimates here, I feel. You've got Supernova, Ravage, and Doom. 3 heroes that are pretty much known for their ultis here.
Yeah, and draw strats are almost exactly the opposite, right? Not reliant on long cooldowns. You know, in fact, any time that FanTuan's cooldowns aren't available, you could just see CDEC grouping up and taking objectives, and there being very little that FanTuan could do about it in this game. So I think you're exactly right that how they use those big ultis will be very decisive in this game, in the early mid game when those fights break out. They need to get big value out of each Ravage and Phoenix, Supernova, and Doom.
So ZY is CDEC's manager. I don't know if it's ZY playing. I know there's been some occasions where like a player will use his manager's account, Ice being the main culprit because he's had account problems, but apparently it's the CDEC manager. So possibly a stand-in, which would definitely largely affect how CDEC play in draft if they are playing with a stand, like, well, even if it is their manager, a stand-in at that.
Yeah, I wonder if Shiki's like not at the LAN then, or if he's like feeling a bit sick, or
Christmas, man. You gotta sometimes celebrate. I don't know. It's not necessarily celebrate in China, but yeah, possibly something going on. But TA, it's a Shiki hero. We'll see if
yeah, and they banned. I mean, FanTuan banned DK and Viper at the end. There's also Shiki heroes, so it's like, I mean, they could be drafting what they would pick anyway, whether or not he's playing. So can't really know.
Okay. Well, we'll see last pick now for FanTuan here. They probably just looking for that kind of stable, safe lane support, I want to say. Phoenix not really known for its zoning prowess in the safe lane, but there we go. Disruptor gets picked up, giving them some catch potential, but definitely much more just a hero focused on the laning stage as far as FanTuan are concerned. Another big kind of teamfight specialist as well, with Static Storm to go into the mix as well.
I seem to have timed out as the draft ended.
Yeah, some good old perfect world happening. It just should hopefully fix itself with a reconnect or two. We had a few problems earlier on in the day, at least on my end, and I think it was base skip, or Danily in the last game also had to reconnect to a game or two, but fingers crossed Perfect World cooperates throughout summer today. So CDEC Gaming going to be on the Dire side with a very much kind of snowball-esque draft. They've got the Drow Ranger. They'll be looking to end things early. They'll have Roshan control from the Dire side. And one of the things like I like to see teams do against these Drow strats is have really strong lanes where they can get a good start. But I just don't feel like FanTuan have the best laning stage with heroes like Tidehunter, Doom, Phoenix not exactly strong in the lane either. So I do kind of worry for FanTuan's ability to pressure CDEC before their draft kind of becomes active.
Yeah. Okay, I've just made it back into the draft, so just getting my bearings, but...
Okay.
Yeah, so... I don't know, it's a tricky thing, and I mean, so we're talking about TNC being like Team Drow, and this is the team that I've watched them a lot. And there's something that the strength of Drow strats I think can sometimes be underestimated. Another team that does it very well is Virtus Pro, where you can think that you've shut them down or controlled them a bit, and then they just get that gap where all of a sudden they kill like 3 or 4 towers, because in this game it'll be, okay, well there's no Ravage up, and now we're just going to push everything. The damage is... One of the things the Drow strats do, which I think is not talked about maybe enough, is they punish you for poor execution. It's... If you're staring down the Drow and the TA and the Nature's Prophet and the Visage, and like someone makes a slight misplay or mispositioning or like slightly wrong timing or combination of spells, like you're dead now. That's, you know, in a way it sets up a dichotomy of the game where the team with the Drow, it's quite easy for they just need to be attacking.
Yeah.
And the other team will definitely be paying for it if they're not doing the correct things, because it's not enough for them to just stand and attack back.
Okay. No, it's definitely, I mean, it goes back to like how much room for error a draft has, and when you're the Drow side, you can make a mistake here or there, and as long as, like you say, you're attacking, you're applying pressure, you're taking objectives, Roshan, overall you're moving forward. The team on the back foot has to be very careful to not make those mistakes, or suddenly they lose a lot more than they kind of bargained for. So right now the lane's looking to be pretty standard from the two teams. Early wards go into the safe lane for both teams. CDEC will scout out FanTuan's kind of rotation into the Dire jungle here with the Tidehunter, and they actually get the instant D-ward, so we've seen a lot of emphasis on the warding and de-warding game here, and DDR trying to get the deny on the Observer ward, but won't be successful.
Yeah, they're really valuable these days.
It's 100 experience points. If that goes like to one hero, suddenly it's like a bounty rune's worth of experience for a hero. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nice. It really incentivizes supports making that investment in sentries maybe a bit more often than they would have before, because there's a huge return when they find the wards.
So it looks like we'll see a TA Invoker mid matchup. Both heroes going to be getting a bounty rune apiece. Oh, see, Phoenix? Nope, mistimed. A bit too early, and takes quite a bit of damage here in the off lane with that dive used. Tried to go for the contest, but unsuccessful.
So it's actually going to be a ZSMJ Doom in the safe lane, and I mean, we could have seen it would have been in the safe lane, but I'm just interested to see, because this is definitely a player that I usually respect for having a good understanding for how to exploit a particular hero. So he'll probably have thoughts about this new skill, what he wants to do with it, how he's going to build. Maybe he's going to challenge what I was saying before, that Icefrog's trying to stop people from building right-clicking Dooms. I don't know.
It's weird because the new spell is a kind of... It's kind of like a Walrus Punch type spell. It's not exactly like you want to right-click a lot, but it does give you that short-term benefit of like an insta-stun, per se, but...
Yeah, yeah. That's why there's kind of like conflicting, I guess, intuitions you might have about it, so I'm just going to let ZSMJ school me, tell me how the hero's meant to be played.
Whoa, it's a... Okay, 4-second cooldown when maxed out, but yeah, pretty big mana cost. So top lane not looking good for FanTuan. 2 supports zoning out what is effectively the 2 offlaners, and all the regen of the Phoenix and the Tide just being whittled away at, as neither can get an experience range. This offlane is truly feeling like an offlane these days.
Yeah, and it's something that GoDz in particular I think does very well. I mean, I'm not sure if it's his decision or CDEC's decision, but I've seen this many times. When he's playing a Spirit Breaker or Bounty Hunter, these are heroes that like we expect to be roaming quite early on. A lot of the time he recognizes, even though I'm a roaming hero, I should just start at the safe lane and dominate. And I've seen this particular player do it many times and get a lot of value from it. Because sometimes you think there's like a lot of pressure on you. Oh, I have charge, or I have, if you're the Bouncy, the Shadow, the Windwalk, whatever. But it's perfectly fine to just, you know, go for the standard role and then move around, and that's what he's doing here. Now he's maybe looking for contesting this rune against the Phoenix.
And even when it's a hero in the mid like an Invoker who is very prone to those kind of early pressure and just harass, just making the safer decision to stick in the safe lane. And well, he'll find a bounty rune now. Want to probably poke around with the Phoenix, see if he can get a bash or anything, but not going to find it with the first hit. But
well, this disrupt, so nice, should be fine.
He's okay. XZ with boots. Summon some more Treants, which ZSMJ will immediately devour one of. The Treants and the Prophet, I mean, that's 4 bonus damage on each Treant, 4 bonus damage on the Prophet with the Intel buff. This lane for supports gets a lot trickier just because of that. And XZ taking kind of full advantage of it at bottom. Not to mention Drow Ranger Aura. That's another big boost to his damage here, which makes him a lot more bothersome to deal with.
So, I don't know, I mean, you're probably tired of talking it because it's probably been a subject in every game today, but Invoker seems to be like considered top tier pick or ban at the moment in China.
Yep. I'd say like almost all regions would be safe to say, or at least most regions.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, there's some differences. Like, for example, in Southeast Asia, Vengeful Spirit has that role at the moment, from what I've seen. Like, it's just being banned or picked every game. But yeah, Invoker. And you can tell also in the pub meta, I don't know if you've been playing a lot of pubs recently, but Invoker's there every game as well. It's kind of like the new Shadow Fiend. It's just like a given that there'll be an Invoker. How they build themselves varies. We see a lot of Invokers starting with Cold Snap Alacrity, and then from there it could be Exort, or it could still be Crossworks. And obviously the Crossworks build with the Orchid ganking build up, and the Exort one usually with the Yules kind of combo-y setup. I feel like I would prefer to see Crossworks in this game. It looks like he is going Crossworks, so he's got those second points. So I think when you're going to be against that, exactly what we're talking about, you can have those like long cooldowns on your Tide ulti or Phoenix ulti. Invoker's got maybe slightly shorter cooldown, control for.
Nice little rotation. Phoenix TP's bottom for a dive kill, so we'll see a first blood taken on the Nature's Prophet. But yeah, I feel like he is so flexible. Like the Crossworks seems to be, for the most part, I would say played 80% of the time. The times when it's not played is when we've seen teams go for like a more kind of push strat where they just go for the Forge Spirits plus Necroball with like a Beastmaster or Avenge on the team. But the item build is where it seems there's most flexibility. I've seen games where there's a 4-staff rush, games where there's a Yule's rush. Even with Quaswex Invoker, there's been Yule Scepter rushes. The Ag Scepter I've sometimes seen prioritized, so it does feel like the item build, it can kind of go any direction depending on the game. But the hero in general, do you feel like he's being over prioritized? Is it just because he's a comfort pick given the buffs? Like it feels too soon to say like he's too strong or he got over buffed yet, to me at least.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's basically the case that this is a hero that top players are always going to want to play if there's an excuse to play it. And we're already seeing it coming out a bit before the patch. We saw Miracle playing Invoker. He actually had that interesting combination where, as you're saying, he was playing Crossworks but with Yules a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So there were signs that players wanted to play Invoker, and I think that Icefrog noticed that and was like, okay, let's just give this hero a nudge, and then we'll see lots of people playing it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's certain heroes that were already getting played a decent amount that just got like little buffs that kind of really pushed them forward, and then there's heroes which aren't getting played, which at the same time didn't get buffs at all. Like Leshrac, everyone still remembers the plague he once was, and he was not getting any love despite being somewhat unplayable at the time being. So obviously that's because he did have his moment in the sunlight, but it's funny how some heroes receive buff despite being strong. Like DK is another pick which was seeing quite a lot of play towards the end of the last patch, but got some big buffs. Oh, Phoenix got out.
Yeah,
easy kill.
Absolutely. I know you're saying DK hasn't really done that well today, but I definitely do think it's a hero that's going to continue to feature in this coming meta game.
ZY looking for a kill here in the mid lane. He's been cold snapped up with Refraction. Dives mid, forces a Ghost Walk out, and that's probably a win in itself. Doesn't get the kill. Charge will get cancelled from Garda, but ultimately keeping the Invoker out of this lane, and Ghost Walk will mean he's going to go back to base to heal himself back up.
So I mean, if this is not Cheeky, if this is just their manager, then he's a pretty good player. He's staying neck and neck in the mid lane, going for the dives, judging the aggression correctly, so...
See our first rotation from Prophet towards top. Level 6 already on XZ. So he's got all the levels he could hope for out of that offlane. So despite giving up the first blood, I feel like he's not going to be too unhappy about his current position. Has ultimate available, which makes fighting into this near impossible. You've got marksmanship giving everyone a huge amount of bonus damage, 30 damage across the board, and then the burst damage coming out from a Wrath of Nature. So Quick tier 1 tower goes the way of CDEC pre 7 minutes.
Yeah, XZ, I think you can make the arguments, is really the player that's brought this team together in the incarnation and now the team that came second at TI, because I was saying earlier that this is a team that largely has been together since like the start of TI of 2014. And the additions they made when maybe left, they got Shiki, and they also replaced, I think they had 333 back then with XE as the offlaner.
Yeah, that's right.
And it shouldn't be that surprising then that we end up talking about him quite a lot. I mean, people used to talk about his clock and his tusk a lot, but he's been one of the main players in the team who's been expanding into new heroes with the Nature's Prophets, and before that with the Enchantress and the Slaughter and the offlane. So definitely, I think one of the most important influences in the team's development.
Yeah, and it does feel like you mentioned during the draft where it feels if there's any player that's maybe slightly hero limited, it would be Shiki in the mid lane. Like has his kind of preferred comfort heroes that CDEC do kind of lean back towards, and there's some heroes that they try not to pick for him probably because he doesn't play all that well. So that's maybe one of the weaker points of the team, but Shiki kind of generally makes up for it with a lot of his mid-game plays. So for the most part, CDEC, a very well-oiled machine. And right now, this game going pretty well according to the script. You don't really expect the strat really to come online until 10 to 15 minutes in, but they've already acquired like a 2,500 net worth lead. The Dro well ahead on farm. TA's winning the mid lane. Profits out farming the Tide. Every hero is out farming their counterpart on the other team right now with the laning setup.
I'm wondering if CDC are going to try and get another tier 1 before Tide and Phoenix get level 6, because Tide's currently nearly level 5, Phoenix is still at level 4. And it almost feels to me like if they were to group up at another tower before the ulti's up, they just get it, basically.
Interesting. Aggressive with the Quelling Blade. I guess that's... Yeah. With all the agility, the base agi you get, the Quelling Blade gives you a lot more bonus damage on a hero like Dro, but you're still a ranged hero. Interesting little change in the build coming out from him.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I guess it could also let him eat through his own teammates' sprouts occasionally, if that... I don't know why that would come up. But
yeah. I'm not entirely sure about this, but I guess he's just done the maths on how much bonus damage it gets, and if he is going to rotate in the jungle, give the lane to Q on the Visage, he says this is the item that allows me to jungle faster. Xe at bottom, doomed up, will go down. The TP from Aggressive, not going to hit the silence, but the charge coming in, Pretty Whore, going to be pretty dead it looks like, as he gets Grave chilled up. TP from Q as well, and Dro Ranger will pick up the kill here at the bottom lane, but it does force a lot of rotation, so all across the board for FanTuan, that's the kind of play they need to be making. Opens up a bit of space in the mid lane as well as elsewhere on the map.
At the same time, I think that this almost... I think this makes it very likely that CDC now go for this bot tower.
Yeah, like, oh, we TP bottom for the kill. Like, great, we'll just take your tier 1 bottom now. He's used the cold snap, he can't cancel Garda's charge, and as a result, Invoker goes down and Prophet with the TP in. There's a Sprout available. Just use it to summon some treants here in the mid lane, and you mentioned pushing the bottom lane. They may even look to put some pressure on this mid tier 1 as well. A lot of heroes nearby. Familiars also coming into the picture.
And it just puts more and more pressure on the dynamic we've discussed all along. What value do you get out of the ultis on FanTuan once they're up? Because if the further you are behind when that first fight happens, the more rides on what happens in that fight. And
it's looking like they could be pretty far behind. And the problem is, like, even if Tide's trying to run with a good Ravage, like, Familiars are such a good kind of counter-initiation play, and they don't get, like, they can just be in the front lines, not worried about stuff like Ravages, Tornadoes, so it's really easy kind of for CDC to counterplay using those Familiars, using less so, like, the charge, but they've got a lot of tools, in my eyes, like, to be able to survive the Ravage, the Egg, and the Tornado combo coming out from FanTuan.
They did not smoke into Rush, they just walked straight in, but I think, again, recognizing there's not really that mobility on FanTuan.
Yeah, no egg, no... Tide had just hit level 6, but boy does Roche draw fast. Now they're going to look for pickoffs. They're going to lead the way with a charge. The cancel not there from the Invoker. His Tornado was on cooldown. They're going to change targets to the Doom. ZSMJ getting bashed up once. The Glimpse back onto the Spirit Breaker.
That's the Disruptor he does.
Yeah, TP coming in. Sprout available in a couple of seconds here, and that's Pretty Whore. Locked in place, one Meld Strike, that's going to be more than enough, and Garda not even needing the charge in the end. And, well, Tier 1 mid tower is also guaranteed pickings as well. Still no level 6 on Phoenix.
Yeah, and it's again, it's good game sense by Garda, because I think that initial charge is never going to make a kill, but
yeah. It's just to kind of force FanTuan to react and put some of those big spells on cooldown.
Yeah, the EMP comes out, the tornado comes out, and then suddenly you can chase the next hero. But I was interrupted when I saw Doom trying to get a Doom off, but actually getting stopped by the Gust mid Doom. I guess he's going to be trying to Doom TA this game, but it's tricky when the TA is holding an Aegis right now. Does she go for the Death Slayer or will she go straight for the Blink in this game?
We'll find out soon enough. He's holding gold as if it will be a Blink pickup. I mean, considering how far behind this Phoenix is, you can almost instantly kill Phoenix just with like a Blink Melt Strike or force out a preemptive Supernova. So
yeah, I mean, I like it when you're in this position. You've got a lot of extra damage from Drow. You've got a bottled DD right now even, yes. So I think you can get a lot of value out of the fast Blink.
They're not in
something
any
that I
huge
find
rush
interesting
to break all the towers as well.
So something I find interesting moving into the current meta, sort of toward the end of last patch and definitely at the start of this patch, is as you see Drow at the Helm of Dom. It seems like Helm of Dom has become like the go-to farming item. Like you hardly ever see carry heroes going for Midases. I mean, there's specific heroes that like Midases still, but like it's similar kind of price. But the Helm of Dom, people seem to decide it's just better value. Maybe because there's more jungle, so there's more room for you to move into, to farm, to distribute where you are.
It has some of the best like stats in the game as far as like carry items go. Like the damage, the armor, everything you get from a Garda at top, getting doomed up, and then there we go. There's the Infernal Blade coming out from the Doom, giving that little mini stun and helping secure one kill. But CDEC may look to counterplay this one. They've got a Blink TA with a double damage. And ZY looking to post up or just blink back defensively. Didn't have the backup he needed. And for CDEC, it's a Spirit Breaker kill, but they're farming all over the map. Prophet at Ancients, Drow at bottom lane, Visage at top lane, TA in the jungle. Like they're not at all worried about one Spirit Breaker kill right now.
Yeah, it's almost, in some sense, it's like his job to... He's like the alarm system. You know, yep. You die, make sure no one else does.
No, absolutely. But yeah, back on the Helm of the Dominant, and the other thing we saw, especially towards the end of like the previous patch and a lot of the summit and stuff, was just how good it can be in those like mid to late game stages when you're just camping out Roshan with your creep. Having the constant vision in the Roshan pit as like a detector for those sneaky Roches seemed to be a really important tool as well. Oh, ZY, there you go, you blink, you miss it, and he blinks in with a DD, finds a pickoff on Disruptor, looking for a secondary kill on Ninja. With a charge and the familiar stuns, they may just get this one. One stun, two stun. And there we go. They get the kill. The Ravage comes out, catches a lot with the Tornado EMP. Can they counterplay this one? It's just a TA on the front line who still has one. Charges the Phoenix. He gets silenced before he can egg. I don't think he had the mana for it anyways. 3 dead. Nothing in return. And CDEC.
Yeah, this is going to convert into a tower for sure. And I wonder if they even go high ground with a little bit of... Yeah. What reason is there to stop? It doesn't seem like this match.
They're so far ahead right now with an Aegis and everything. Limps back on OTA, but TA says, if you guys want to waste spells on me, by all means. And this is definitely exploiting some of the Doom pick and its weaknesses. It just cannot fight into this kind of aggressive playstyle. And 15 minutes in, CDEC have taken a melee Rax. They're going to go out with the ulti combos now. They haven't got the Ravage though. They're fighting with just a Supernova here. And this is really the big problem here. That first big team fight had to use all those ultimates and had to go well. He'll follow it up with a dive and some Fire Spirits, but everyone on the CDEC side is still fairly healthy here. One last Soul Assumption not available, but in July will get blinked and chased down. This is possibly just an early GG call. Tier 2 tower's still up, which means their side lanes of Raxus will be protected for now. That'll buy him some time, but... This is...
Yeah, but this ulti's down now again, and the Aegis is still up, so I don't think there's anything for CDEC. There's no reason for them to not just go for another side.
That's Ravage and Egg for over a minute. And yeah, Aegis about to wear off, so maybe they'll be a bit cautious because of that. But if they don't take Roshan now... if they don't take another lane of Rax and go high ground now, they're just going to be farming out the whole map, getting complete utter map control. And they are sitting on a decent chunk of gold. You take a lane of Rax, suddenly everyone's sitting on 1 to 2k gold, and... perhaps just gonna play things a bit cautiously. They've got a mech pickup now on Visage. They've got the Deso coming out on the TA soon. Prophet's got 2.7k. Can build towards the Ag Scepter or a Necro Book. So I imagine for CDEC, they recognize the state of this game and know that there is almost no way they can kind of throw away this kind of a lead if they just fall back.
I really like actually that the Prophet went for a drum in this game. I feel like it fits perfectly. It's the right item to get to. Well,
Yep.
Drow's gonna try and jump in on Invoker, but I think that there's a Ghost Walk ready.
Short on mana for the silence. Ghost Walk out. XZ doomed up. Okay. We'll go down. Familiar to 9. No. Not attempted here. But here comes the counterplay from CDEC if they want to. They've got a lot of heroes here. TA's Deso hasn't been picked up just yet. I think it's the third or fourth game, at least third game today, we've seen the drums first item on the Nature's Prophet. It just seems to be, it's got a nice build up and just something you can buy pretty well as an offlaner.
Yeah, I guess it's new to me. I'll admit. I mean, I hadn't really noticed that before. And
it was I think ice was the first one to do it today when he played a Prophet offlane, and then in one or two of the other series there was also a drums first. So it's possibly something the teams are just picking up from one another, as far as playing the offlane Prophet goes here in China.
I mean, it reminds me a bit of the build-up that people used to use with the Blade Mill, because it's also kind of like cheap item, a stat-based utility, except that the Blade Mill is more focused on yourself, and I think the drum's more team-orientated.
Well, here we go. Tidehunter gets a mech of his own on the Radiant side, so he's actually put together a few items, but realistically they're going to need more than that. CDC, if they want, which they probably will, could just secure themselves another Roshan before they go for another high ground attempt.
Yeah, I don't know what's to come back into this game. I mean, the big deal, I think, it's not even just enough that FanTuan get all their spells off in the same fight. I think they need to start the fight. I think that if the fight's on CDC's terms, that they're running at you, you're running away, and you like once at a time throw out your ultis, it's not going to be enough because you're not going to be able to kill the Drow. And that's the chances are the next time there's a fight, the TA is going to be very difficult to kill with or without an Aegis. And the Drow is going to keep everyone strong, the TA, the Visage, the Nature's Prophet. But in order to deal with these Drow lineups, you have to be able to, like, jump onto her on the back lines.
Yeah. And realistically, CDC, if they really want to wait for their, like, BKB timing on Drow Ranger and TA, there's nothing FanTuan can do against that. They've got Doom, perhaps, on one of those heroes, but ultimately I don't see them winning a big fight when CDC have BKBs. Not to mention, if you have a 50-50 trade team fight, you just go again when the ultis get on cooldown.
It's like FanTuan agree that they need to make the first move, and this is a big smoke into their own jungle.
Catch could be the glimpse here. Can they get in range for it? They're very close on aggressive. The Tornado will get in range here. Glimpse back onto the TA. The Static Storm not going to latch here with the kinetic field. They get out of it, and uh-oh, this could turn around quickly. Garda goes swooping through with a charge. Injurlay gets silenced up, which means no Ravage for now. He pops some mech. That's not going to save Disruptor. The Ravage comes out, but there's no real follow-up for this one. ZSMJ has a Doom available. Doesn't want to throw it onto Q. Instead, the charge will come out. Do they focus the egg? You betcha. That's a level 1 egg. 5 hits. It's done for. Aggressive is doomed up, but he's still on the backlines. Kept alive. 4 dead. Make it 5. CDC cleanup.
And this is...
There we go. 20 minutes.
It's that dynamic I was talking about earlier where, like, if you get your execution not quite right against the Drow strat, they just stand around and hit you, and it looks like a bit of a joke almost.
Well, CDC, nothing but business for them here in their opening game. FanTuan just looked outclassed. Definitely, the draft was just too much all in with some of the big teamfight and ultimates, I feel. Like they had nothing to kind of contest the early game. But
yeah, which is obviously a concern against the draft strategy, because then you do put all your eggs into one basket, because you know they're going to be using their momentum very aggressively.
Yep. And all across the board, CDC, just solid play from them. But just game 1, it is a best of 3, but if CDC can keep it up, we could be having an early day 1 finish, thanks to CDC's performance. A 20-minute game 1. We'll take a quick break, guys. I'm GoDz. Joining me is Scant. It is the Rad&Dire Cup 2015. 8 of China's best competing for over $150,000 on LAN. And we'll see how day 1 will end. The winner bracket quarterfinals concluding soon, possibly with game 2, or we'll see if we'll get a game 3. Don't go anywhere, guys.